Are there reserve list cards worth buying right now? Are there cards out there so cheap you probably shouldn't ignore them? Or are some of these cards expensive but still a good deal? Well, in today's video, we're going to take a look at some of these reserve list cards and a few you probably forgot about. The closer we get to the end of 2024, the more we get to reflect on how the year went, the hot topics of the year, but also where card prices went and where reserve list cards went. If you're a reserve list lover, you've probably watched my channel at some point, even if you don't like me, just for some of the information and content that I research. And when you go through a couple of years of this, you can now look back on 2024, look at those hot reserve list cards that were attached to some commander deck. And some of these cards have really come down in price. Other cards are still sought after and expensive. So where does that leave us right now? Well, welcome back, my friends. MTG Moxman here. Thanks again for hanging out with me today. I love the reserve list. I love the cards within it. And really, after 30th anniversary, what are the chances that Wizards of the Coast is really going to go near the reserve list anytime soon? Well, they're not going to. There's lots of people who would love to think they will, and maybe I'll be proven wrong one day. But until that point happens, and the abyss becomes a real place, I'm going to enjoy the fact that I've collected reserve list cards and enjoy myself. And maybe you guys will find a few good deals today. Now, the first card I want to share with you, the first card I want to mention is going to be Seeds of Innocence. Now, let's take a moment to look at this card. Seeds of Innocence from Mirage. During 2022, this thing was like a $40, $50 card. And it had that long drop, just like every other reserve list card did, a slow meandering down in price until it got back down to around the $5 mark. And then we had Bloomborough come out. And Bloomborough gave us the Eater of All. Now, in case you forgot what that card looks like, now let's take a look at the Eater of All from Bloomborough. Most of you guys remember this card. It's really recent. And this card is a 5 casting cost, 6/6. It's a legendary creature, elemental cat. It has ward, sacrifice of food, but it says other creatures are food artifacts in addition to their other types and have pay 2, sacrifice this permanent, and you gain 3 life. So really, how does this connect? Well, the bottom part of the card also says whenever a food is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, put 2 +1/+1 counters on the Eater of All. Now, let's take a look here, because you can see here the Seeds of Innocence is a 2 green, 1 other sorcery that says bury all artifacts. Each artifact's controller gains life, and it's equal to that artifact's casting cost. So that creature costs 6, you're getting 6 life, that's fine. But they're all going to the graveyard, and it says here whenever a food's put into a graveyard, well, the Eater of All here gets a +1/+1 counter and gets 2 of them for each one. So you wipe a battlefield full of tokens out in a commander game. Anyway, you get where I'm going with this. This guy becomes super big. And the Seeds of Innocence becomes a very selective board wipe. And it's really low casting cost. 2 green and 1 other. It fits perfectly. And how many cards let us go find sorcery spells? You can see the effectiveness of a card like this. So what does that mean for, of course, Seeds of Innocence? Well, the card shot up in value. This thing went up to like $27, $28, right? We all remember that. It jumped right up. We talked about it on the channel. But we've also talked in the past, especially if you're a regular viewer, we've talked in the past about buying these cards when they're cheap, not buying into the hype or the FOMO of a card jumping in value. Now, right now it says here Seeds of Innocence is $11.05. So really, it hasn't dropped as much as you think it might. You're like, wow, nobody's really talking about it. The price is on its way down. That's right. But here's the real kicker. It's not $11.05. It doesn't matter that you're seeing that on the screen right now. That's the real big one of this one. That's not the price. It's not. That $11.05 is for a near mint copy from a few select stores. But if you go looking on TCG Player, and by the way, I'll shill for myself right now, as Rudy would say at Alpha Investments, I have a TCG Player affiliate link. So if you're shopping there, use my link. It's found in the description of this video. We get a kickback on the channel, helps me get prizes. I do appreciate it. Now, let's get back to the serious topic of where this price is at. If you go looking on TCG Player, you'll find this card for $5. Lightly played. $5. lightly played. Uncommons from Bloomborough cost as much as a 30-year-old reserve list card that is connected to a commander card that people are actually playing. $5, you get some great synergy. $5. Now, why are people not buying it right now? Because nobody's talking about it. The hype wore off. Some people made a lot of money and flipped some cards in, and it was a hot topic for a moment. And now it's done. Nobody's talking about it, and everyone's forgotten. Now, that could be to your advantage. You can buy 4 copies, spend 20, 25 bucks, and you're done. You'll never have to worry again because you own 4 of them. Mirage is a big print run, but this card doesn't have the card depth that you'll find of other reserve list cards because this one actually does get played. It does have some uses. It's not a weird card that nobody ever heard of or will ever touch. Because remember, out of that 572 cards on the reserve list, very few are actually considered to be collectible, playable cards in terms of actually playing Magic, right? People play them for fun, but seriously, you have to pick and select the ones you care about. Now, the next card I'm going to share with you guys, it's a little bit different. By the way, Seeds of Innocence at this price is a steal. I've picked up some for my channel, and I think most of you guys realize when the cards are this cheap, and knowing where it's been before twice now. We've had it at 25, we've had it at 50 bucks during the buyouts. This card will go up again at some point. And in the next year or two, if we see more cards connect, it is going to be more price resistant to slipping in price. So if Seeds of Innocence is cheap enough for you, go for it. If it's a card you already own, don't worry about it. Ignore this part of the video. Now, the next card is not cheap, but we do need to talk about it because this one is a little bit more of a scary card. This is Mox Diamond from Stronghold. Now, if you've ever opened Stronghold, there was chances to get 2 or 3 of these in a box and 2 or 3 Sliver Queens. It was very weird how they did it back then. A lot of repetition. And this card right now averages $629.99 US. Okay? But it is losing ground a little bit. I want you to look at that price chart you see there on the screen. Because this card is very price resistant to dropping in price. It goes down 20, 40, 50 bucks. Whenever it hits close to around the $520 mark, it gets that rubber band effect and it shoots right back up. And there's reasons for that. The fact that this card fits into any commander deck, anywhere. Remember, it's a 0 casting cost artifact. And it states when Mox Diamond comes into play, choose and discard a land card or sacrifice Mox Diamond. Add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool, play it as a mana source. So really, you're going to ditch a land to your graveyard, which you probably have a way of retrieving anyway with the multitude of ways of going back to our graveyards nowadays. And you get to put a bad boy of comedy in there and get some quick mana very, very, very quickly. Quick mana very quickly. It goes together. Now, I look at that card, and a lot of you guys do, and you say it's at a price. It's impossible to get. There's no way I'm getting that card. And that's partially true. It's a very expensive card for the average player to buy. But a lot of players I've noticed and have emailed and talked about this, they said, I realize this card is 650 bucks near mint. And finding a heavily played copy is actually kind of difficult nowadays because a lot of those got bought up. Okay, about 9 months ago, 8 months ago, we had real sales going on in that market where a lot of players were seeking these out, and a lot of wish lists on stores have people seeking Mox Diamonds that are heavily played to pay in that 400 range, which is very hard to find. So what are players doing? What they're doing right now to get this card is they're doing trade-ups. When some card becomes hot, they mark it on a spreadsheet, they trade it into a store for trade-in store credit, and they build up over the course of a number of months, and then eventually they have enough good trade-in value to put a real down payment on one of these cards, especially if they're regular purchasers but find it hard to save up large quantities of cash all at once to buy an expensive card like a Mox Diamond. They have to do it over time. And especially if they have decent cards that for some reason have spiked beyond what they thought they were, or they find some bulk they thought was worthless and now it's worth like $5 a card. Trading in 5, 6, 7 cards, 25, 30, 40 bucks doesn't seem like a lot, but when you do it 7, 8 times in a year, anywhere from 10 to 20 bucks worth of cards, you have 300 or 400 bucks saved up by the end of a year. 200 to 400 bucks, depending on what you're trading in. And that can be a real down payment toward the card you want. And when a Mox Diamond shows up, or there's one sitting on their shelf there for a long time, you can trade that in and pay a small nominal fee to get the card. This is happening a lot more often, which is why some of the reserve list sales, you kind of see these cards show up and you're like, well, how did somebody pay $30,000 for 1 week sales of reserve list cards and Mox Diamonds on the list? A lot of trade ups. It happens a lot. When we've had cards spike this year, a lot of this has happened. It didn't have to be every card I'm sharing with you guys today, but this is one of those cards that players are seeking out a lot. Far more than is being mentioned by most content creators who cover reserve list cards, if there's anyone really covering any more other than me. Mention a few guys, put some comments down there. Let some of the reserve list people out there know where other content creators who cover it daily are going to be. So the next card. This one's not as expensive, but it's important because don't forget, cards like these are cards you need to watch all the time in case you see these kind of patterns coming up. If you ever want to know anything, send me an email. I'm always happy to help out. Whether you're a patron or a YouTube membership member, you'll get more detail. But if you need to know some information, guys, anybody can email me. I will always answer. Just give me time. I do get quite a few emails now. Now, for our next card, I want to share this one with you guys. This is interesting as well. Take a look at this, okay? Now, this next card is from Urza's Legacy. This is Grim Monolith. Now, there's a reason I want to mention this card. Again, pay attention to the pricing sheet there, right? You'll look at the graph going across, and you'll look anywhere around 2020 onward. You'll see the uptick into 2021, 2022, and then you'll see it kind of leveling out, kind of going up and down a lot. But there's also a lot of regular intervals of up and down. These intervals are not changing a lot. They're just little tiny spikes that go back and forth because something's going on. This card's price stickiness is also happening just like Mox Diamond, but it's not at 600 bucks yet. So what do we have with this card? When we take a closer look at this Urza's Legacy card, it's a 2 casting cost, and the Grim Monolith does not untap during your untap phase. Now, there's infinite mana combos you can do with this card. I know a lot of people who do them, but let's just talk about the actual card as it stands. It taps to add 3 colorless mana to your mana pool. Play this ability as a mana source. So if you have a mana vault, that's 1 to get out and 3 to tap, right? And then the mana vault, it doesn't untap unless you pay it. It does damage to you. This is a more simplified version. Yes, it costs 1 more, and there's lots of ways of untapping, of course, with the 4 mana to untap, and you can do it any time. This card is going to continue to go up. Now, this is still expensive. I'm not going to say it's not. Remember, I'm not taking away from the prices here, but this one is 50% less than Mox Diamond, which puts it at a much more obtainable level for a majority of players who play regularly and spend little bits of money here and there. It's not for everyone, but there is a certain level. Though, don't forget as well, these are all reserve list cards, and of course, I'm acting under the assumption these are never getting reprinted. So I wonder where they're going to go. Commander players will continue to need these cards as time goes on, and as Commander deck pools continue to grow with new players and new decks, who knows how many are going to be left in 15, 20 years. I know that seems like a massive amount of time, but really, trust me, as I get older, I realize it's not. So a card like this at $299. That's $299 US for a near mint copy. Now, shortcuts. Some people are going to take the really short route, spend 20 bucks and go get a World Championship edition. 20 bucks, super cheap. I know somebody who just bought 20 of them. They cleaned out a store, just took 20. They said 400 bucks. I've got one for all the decks I'm ever going to need. I never have to worry about it. I don't care if it's a World Championship edition or not. Don't care. I'm playing in Commander. It's casual. I'm playing kitchen table. I don't care, Moxman. I'm just letting you know, here's the receipt. Interesting. But other people want the real deal. I'm a real deal kind of guy, okay? Mini Mox is not there yet. My son, he'll go for a collector edition one. He'll go for like an international edition. He doesn't care. As long as it fits into his deck, he's good to play his dragon deck. But for me, I'm like a lot of players out there. I want to get the real deal. I want the real card. So if this card's $299 for near mint, you can find heavily played copies, which is surprisingly at around the 220 mark. They're not nearly as low as you would think they are at that level of condition. So you have to be aware you'll be price shopping pretty heavily to get there. But as the price stands, and you can see where the price has been for a number of years, this card's holding its market value. It's like a Honda. It just seems to keep a certain level of value and it doesn't really drop. Little jumps up and down by the year, but overall this card is going to have liquidity. It is going to be sought after by a number of players, which means it's an easier card to move and it's going to have a lot of playability for you if you're a player looking for this type of card. Love it. I think you guys should pay attention to it, but we're not done. I want to share another card with you, so take a look at this next one, okay? This year, we saw Scorch Ruins go through the roof. Not just because of the Eldrazi deck that we saw from Modern Horizons 3, but also because of the commander build of Atrocity. Now, when you take a closer look at this card, and again, jump back to 2020, when this card was $12. Then you see 2021, it's like 30 bucks. Then it jumps all the way up in 2022 to around the $90 mark. Then it starts slipping down like many cards did after the buyouts. In 2022, 2023, it's just slipping. But then 2023, it goes up, then it goes down, then it goes up again. Now, this type of little effect here, you can say all kinds of crazy stuff about why something's going up and down. But for me, if commander players are after these cards, it is going to have more uses. More uses, more builds means it takes less to move the market. There's just not that many of these cards sitting around for players to get in on. I'm not saying they're impossible to find. Scorch Ruins is around, but the price is going to continue to hold for a longer period of time. You can't forget that a card like this, when it comes into play, it says sacrifice 2 untapped lands. Again, remember we just talked about how easy it is to get your lands back from your graveyard, but this thing taps for 4 colorless mana. 4. If you can find a way for lands that come into play tapped to be untapped, you can find ways to untap this more than once. You can see why Eldrazi decks would want to use this card, or any type of deck build that has huge, massive creatures that take a good section of colorless mana to help out, means this card is going to be utilized a lot more than players think. And because it's going to be utilized more than a player thinks it's going to be, that price is going to hold. Because people aren't expecting to have to pay a ton of money until they go out to buy it. And then they're going to see and say, oh, well, look, it's been this price for a long time. Look, this price is holding. It's a sought after card. I guess I'm going to have to foot the bill. Now, the thing is about these prices, 2 of the cards I shared with you, Mox Diamond, as well as Grim Monolith, those cards, the stickiness of the price is really starting to show as the years go by. They're not going to get a lot cheaper. Scorched Ruins is going to slip down again. It is getting to the point where it is going to hold its price point in a stronger way, but it's still going to dip 20%. It's still going to go down. Because again, players forget about these cards and the hype goes away, like Seeds of Innocence. The price starts dropping down and players don't think about it. And because they don't think about it, that gives the other players out there an opportunity to get a copy if they forgot to, or there was a build they wanted to build and they just got in too late. They weren't going to buy into the FOMO, so they just sat back and now they get to benefit. Now, is this card still dipping? Absolutely. It will go down. You wait till the new year, you're going to see another 5% drop. It's going to slowly go down, but it will dip down because don't forget, more stock does come to the market. Players do trade cards in, and other people get bored of a commander deck and take it apart sometimes, but not as often as they used to. Players love building a commander deck now and holding it, so they have lots of options to play commander games. Even myself, I see myself building more, and I'm less likely to ever trade cards in now because I want to get more stuff. And if I own it, why would I ever want to trade it in? And that's why prices again start to hold. Now, the last card I want to share with you guys today is from the dark, and there's a lot to say about this card, so let's take a look. Here we have City of Shadows from the Dark. Now, this artwork has always appealed to me, and I still buy this card to this day, so I do have quite a few copies of this card. Now, I've got everything from heavily played to near mint, but let's take a look at this. In 2022 to 2023, this card saw a weird spike, and it hit over $200 for a while. And since then, the price has meandered down, which is interesting because the buyout price of 2021 only brought this card to about $125. So the second one, which was not part of the buyout, had this massive spike that people wonder what was going on, but there was a lot of copies being bought and sold. Even though it was not being played a lot, it looks like it was speculation. So where does that leave us now with a card like this? It's finally coming down. Why would a player want to utilize it, and why are they even paying attention? Remember, a near mint copy, by the way, is $53.65, but a moderately played copy is going to be in the $30 range. So let's take a look at this card. City of Shadows is a land. Not legendary, just a land. Great story behind it, by the way, but that's for another day. Tap to sacrifice one of your creatures, but remove it from the game instead of placing it in your graveyard, and put a counter on the City of Shadows. You can tap it to add X colorless mana to your mana pool, where X is the number of counters on the City of Shadows. Okay, so we have a card that you could block with your own creatures. Before they die, you sack it. So you got the block, you've sacked it, and you get the counter. Okay, but the other thing you can do is, of course, is go ahead and find a way to take control of your opponent's creatures and sacrifice them, because you're also removing them from the game. This is a type of board wipe as long as you can take control of that creature in some way, and you can do it with some consistency. every turn take something, even if it's only random, and you're building up the counters on a City of Shadow. Now, when I talk about the City of Shadow, I want you to also consider and think about Scorched Ruins. Scorched Ruins at its price point versus City of Shadow. City of Shadow can get a lot higher than 4 colorless mana on its mana pool. There are lots of ways of sacrificing token armies nowadays to build a card like this up. Yes, it takes a couple of turns, but you don't have to wait that many turns, do you? When you think about the City of Shadows, you can lay this thing out on turn 2 if you can sack a token, or just lay it out on turn 1 as a land that can't do anything yet. But you can't lay out that Scorched Ruins until you have some lands to sack, until you have some way of getting that card to be able to stick to the board. City of Shadows is a very attractive card for a number of reasons. And it does see quite a bit of commander play now in various janky fun decks. But when you take a serious look at the card, and you look at the ways you can use this card, either to stop your own creatures from being taken from you, using it as a selective board wipe on your opponent's creatures, or various targeted opponents when you're making some friends in commander, and at the end of some kind of wave, somebody else board wiping you, you can take one of your own creatures out just to make sure that that counter doesn't get wasted. You can add it to your City of Shadows to make it a little bit bigger. Now, in my commander deck, I'll be honest, I use my Throw Bowl deck. I generate a lot of Throw tokens of 0/1s, and I sack it every turn whenever I get a chance to build up the counters on this land to be able to tap for 10, 15, 20 mana. It becomes a real threat level, and people do recognize it, but they don't recognize it right away. It doesn't look like much. But again, comparing against the Scorched Ruins, you can see there's a lot of stuff going on there that's pretty good. And at its price point of $30, $35 for moderately played, and the price is still going down about $5, $6 a month, and it's going to continue to drop. You don't have to buy this card now. This is a card to watch and keep an eye on. This is a card that isn't going to take a lot to get into. And it's a card you're going to have advantages for buying in the future if you ever decide to build with it in that kind of way. So a card like that, where I know it's been that high numerous times now, more than once, and where it could go in the future, and the lower print run of being one of the 4 Horsemen sets, print run 63 million. There's not that many of these cards out there, although there's a lot in stock, which means nobody's really using it or nobody's paying attention. And people lost money last time, so they're probably not thinking about it. But if it continues to drop, it may be a card to pay attention to, just in case you want to build with some fun stuff. And it fits into any deck, by the way. It can go anywhere, because you can always sack your stuff after you block it to build up counters on it. And as long as you have something that needs a heavy mana supply or a big X casting cost, it can be just the card to fill that void. Anyway, I've taken up enough of your time today, but I had to share some of these cards because the closer we get to the end of the year, I want to talk about a few of these cards, and I'll have some more videos coming up on this topic, because there's enough cards that went really high this year that we shouldn't ignore them, and it might be the right time for some people to take advantage of it, just so you don't get taken advantage of next time when FOMO hits. If you own it already and you paid 25 cents on the dollar to where it is after a FOMO event, you might as well enjoy the card and have a good time and not pay 3, 4, 10 times more than you should. Guys, thanks a lot for hanging out with me today. Thanks for being here with the Mox Man. I will see you guys tomorrow with another video, because it is the top 10. The hottest selling cards in Magic. That's our Saturday, and I can't wait to see you guys there. Have a great one, everyone. Hey everyone, here we are at the end, and guess what? The audio is in the right place for today's video. Can you imagine what happened yesterday? There was no way of correcting that. I'm so sorry, everyone. I moved some stuff around the video, and the audio went nutty, and it didn't move with it. Either way, the patrons, you guys understand. My YouTube membership members, you understand, and hopefully the viewers do too. Guys, I will see you tomorrow with another video. Thanks again, everyone. All right, you're here at the end. If you take a look at my YouTube shorts, Ramble Jamble, I did one on Tranquility, not a reserve list card. But the fact that I could buy unlimited copies for 80 cents near mint, 80 cents a copy for unlimited, the prices are not where they should be. And there's a lot of low-end cards you can take advantage of if you enjoy them, to add a little bit of bling to your deck that most people won't recognize right off the bat, but it has that subtle bit. Like, that card looks a little bit darker. That card looks a little bit more bold and writing. You're like, yeah, because it's unlimited. And it's awesome. Some of these prices are just so cheap right now. Anyway, I wanted to mention that. There's a lot of good cards out there. Seeds of Innocence is definitely one to watch. I'll do some more videos on this if I get enough views on this one and people enjoy it, I will do more. I'm always afraid that I pick a topic that not enough people appeal to, but I think my core audience likes this stuff. I hope you guys too. I hope you made it to the end. You're at the after party. Don't doubt me. Let me doubt myself, okay? I'm here. I'm stepping up. See you guys later. Stepping up. What am I talking about?